evening. Thank you very much for joining us here on Urban Debate on Mirror Now. I am Hina Gambhir. Early morning today, the national capital witnessed high drama. 4 days after clashes in Delhi, bulldozers arrived in Jahangirpuri area and began a demolition drive against illegal structures in that area by Delhi's civic body. As per North Delhi's civic body, this was a routine anti-encroachment drive. Hours later, an order came from the top court of the country to halt the demolition drive, as the court said that it would hear the case tomorrow and ordered the civic body of MCD to maintain status quo. But the authorities did not stop immediately. It took some time for the officials who were present on the ground. It took some time for the North Delhi civic body to implement the order of the top court, as officials on the ground insisted they have not received the order copy yet, and hence demolition continued despite top court's order. However, what was left later to see in the locality was demolished dreams, pain of the local residents, fruit vendors, small businesses established by locals turning into debris. The residents kept alleging that they were not served any notice before the demolition, but the authorities turned a blind eye. They went ahead with the demolition. And viewers, this is not the first instance of bulldozer justice in the country. It was popularized by Uttar Pradesh. Last week, it was witnessed in Madhya Pradesh's Khargone area. Here's what happened today.
जो सामान निकालने भी जा रहा है उसको मार के भगा रहा है। हम लोग कैसे जा सकते हैं बोलो?
पाँच दिन से आप लोग ऐसे ही?
हाँ, हम लोग ऐसे ही है। रोजा खोल के भी ऐसे भूखे बैठे हैं।
आज सारा सामान हटा के ले गया। अब ये वो तो आज 5 दिन से रास्ता बंद कर रखा है। अब आदमी का दाल रोटी का गुजारा था कि चलो थोड़ा उम्मीद था कि मामला सही हो जाएगा तो आदमी दाल रोटी खाएगा। अब सारा सामान लेके चलेगा, आदमी क्या खाएगा पिएगा? त्योहार है, ईद में खर्चा कितना होता है इंसान का पता है?
नोटिस कुछ नहीं आया भाई, यही आया था कि यहाँ का सामान हटाया जाएगा। हम यहाँ पर 3-4 दिन से तो आने भी नहीं दे रहे दुकान के पास। बड़ी मुश्किल से यहाँ तक आए हैं तो इतने में तो इन्होंने ये करना चालू कर दिया।
सुमित, ये जो आपकी दुकान है, ये दुकान कितनी पुरानी है आपकी यहाँ पर?
ये दुकान बहुत पुरानी है।
कितने साल हो गए इसको?
ये मेरे पापा के नाम है, पापा को ही पता है। काफी मैं तो बचपन से यहीं पर हूँ, पापा के साथ है। पापा मेरे गए हैं बाहर। ये DDA की दुकान है पुरानी, तो के सारे रजिस्ट्री है हमारे पास, के सारे कागज है।
अच्छा, तो आप लोगों ने इनको बताया नहीं था जो तोड़ने आ रहे थे?
बताया, लेकिन उन्होंने ये कर ही दिया तो क्या कर रहे हैं।
5-6 मंजिलें दुकान में रखी है, वो भी अलाउड नहीं है। अगर MCD देखे तो वो भी अलाउड नहीं है।
तो सडनली उनकी नींद कैसे खुल गई?
हाँ जी,
MCD की नींद सडनली कैसे खुल गई?
अब MCD की नींद की गोली, अब उनका जो नशा था वो कम हो गया तो उनकी आँख खुल गई। पहले कभी उनकी आंख नहीं खुली। अगर आंख खोलनी है तो वहाँ पे मार्केट में भी जाके देखो, पूरी मार्केट घिरी हुई है। ये रोड थोड़ी गिरा हुआ है, पूरी मार्केट घिरी हुई है। 5-5 MCD में जो है 2 मंजिल अलाउड है, 5-5, 6-6 मंजिलें दुकान बना रखी है।
मेरा तो बहुत नुकसान हो गया, और रेडी बनाने में कम से कम 25-30 हजार की, ऊपर से उसका सामान 50 हजार से ऊपर का नुकसान है सर।
कैसे भरपाई करेंगे इसको?
अब हम क्या करें भाई, गरीब आदमी है, देखा जाएगा जैसे भी होगा, भीख मांग लेंगे और क्या करेंगे।
आपका जो इसमें आपने जो क्राइम किया है, जो करतूतें की हैं, उस पर कानूनी कार्रवाई होनी चाहिए और होती ही है। अब आप गुनाह को गोत्र से जोड़ देंगे, गुनाहगार की गंभीरता और उस गुनाह की गंभीरता को एक दरकिनार कर देंगे, तो दिक्कत ये हुई है कुछ लोग लगातार देश के सौहार्द के ताने बाने को कैसे नुकसान पहुंचाया जाए, कैसे जो है वो देश की तरक्की पर जो है वो बाधाएं डाली जाएं, कैसे जो है वो इस देश की एकजुटता के और एकजुटता के माहौल को ख़राब किया जाए, इस काम में लगे हुए हैं।
I am here because the Supreme Court has given an order for status quo. I have conveyed that to the senior police official. He has assured me no bulldozer, nothing is going to be raised as of now, and that's why we are appealing to the people of Jahangirpuri. Please maintain peace, please maintain harmony. The bulldozer has stopped.
आज भाजपा शासित MCD जहांगीरपुरी में बुलडोजर चला रही है। कह रही है कि अगर दंगे रोकने हैं तो बुलडोजर चलाना जरूरी है। तो बाकी देश में दंगे कौन करा रहा है? भाजपा करा रही है। भाजपा गुंडों की पार्टी है, भाजपा लफंगों की पार्टी है। तो अगर वास्तविक तौर पे दंगे रुकवाने हैं तो भाजपा के हेडक्वार्टर पे बुलडोजर चलाना चाहिए। जिस दिन भाजपा के हेडक्वार्टर पे बुलडोजर चल गया उसके बाद देश भर में दंगे खत्म हो जाएंगे।
दिल्ली में जो दंगे हुए उसकी अकाउंटेबिलिटी केंद्र सरकार की है, क्योंकि जो दिल्ली की पुलिस है वो डायरेक्टली होम मिनिस्टर ऑफ इंडिया को रिपोर्ट करती है, वो दिल्ली सरकार को नहीं रिपोर्ट करती। तो मेरे ख्याल से जो दिल्ली में हुआ उसकी अकाउंटेबिलिटी पूरी तरह से केंद्र सरकार की होम मिनिस्ट्री पे जाती है। नहीं, मेरे ख्याल से एक इंक्वायरी होनी चाहिए, दूध का दूध और पानी का पानी।
एमसीडी के अंदर में आता है और न्याय, कानून, व्यवस्था जो सबके लिए कानून बराबर होता है।
The North Delhi Municipal Corporation sent 9 bulldozers to remove what it called illegal encroachments in Jahangirpuri. CPIM senior leader Brinda Karat confronted the MCD officials today, blocked a bulldozer at Delhi's Jahangirpuri area and was even seen waving the copy of the Supreme Court order. And she is joining us live this evening on Urban Debate. Thank you very much, Ms. Brinda Karat, for joining us here on Urban Debate on Mirror Now this evening. Firstly, can you describe for our viewers what exactly happened when you went to Jahangirpuri area of the national capital today, and why do you think it was important for you to go there and stop the demolition drive?
Well, this morning, as you know, after the BJP leader here in Delhi had given an open call that the bulldozer from Madhya Pradesh, the bulldozer from UP was going to be seen in Jahangirpuri, it was very clear that this was not an issue of what was legal or illegal, but this was really following an agenda at present of the BJP and the Sangh Parivar. And I was on my way to Jahangirpuri because I believed that after the Supreme Court order, the demolition would have stopped and we were going to have a meeting of the people in the area. When I reached Jahangirpuri, I was informed by our lawyer who had appeared before the Supreme Court of the order of the Supreme Court to maintain status quo. And he had sent me, you know, the details of what the court had said. When I reached Jahangirpuri, I was absolutely shocked to find that the bulldozers were just smashing the, you know, just sheds. It's not even as there was huge property or anything. They're just poor people. And they were just sheds there, you know, like shops outside houses where they were just selling. You know, somebody was selling sweets, somebody was selling mithai, somebody was selling, running a repair shop. So it was all really small shops. And there were these huge, giant bulldozers just smashing everything. And that's about an hour and a half after the Supreme Court order. So obviously, I was there with my other comrades and we just went and stood in front of the bulldozers and said, listen, what you're doing is illegal. The demolition itself is illegal because you have not given notice to anybody. And now you are demolishing the order of the Supreme Court. You're in contempt of the Supreme Court. So we stopped the bulldozers. After that, you know, the senior officers came, the police senior officers came. They put me on the line to the person, the officer of the Municipal Corporation of Delhi, who was under instructions to carry all this out. It was a lady. And well, you know, once we stopped the bulldozers, everybody said, well, now the bulldozers have stopped and they've been halted. But the question really is, does a citizen of this country not have the right, if I'm an encroacher, do you not give me a notice? Will you not give me an opportunity to say what my side of the case is? without any due process of the law. I have been in Jahangirpuri for years. I've known that area when I was working in the textile union decades ago in North Delhi. And there's never been a single communal incident, never, not once. Ever since a resettlement colony was resettled there. They're mainly workers. They're self-employed, small shopkeepers. And after the pandemic, whether they're Hindu or Muslims, outside their homes, every block you will find these small sheds where people are just trying to live, just trying to survive. So it was selective. I've got photographs of exactly the same kind of sheds just in the neighboring block. In the area where the bulldozers were smashing everything, there was a Hindu shopkeeper. He happened to have a shop next to the Muslim. They didn't know Hindu Muslim. They said, this is the area. They just smashed it. And he told me, he told our team that my brothers, my relations, they have the same kind of shops just in another block. But look, they've demolished mine without even any notice. So this is selective, it is illegal, and it is determined not by the law, not by the constitution, not by an individual's democratic right in India, but by a sectarian agenda of the BJP. Now, how can anybody tolerate that? How can anybody? So it is for that reason that I believe that what is happening in Jahangirpuri and elsewhere is not really Hindu-Muslim, Muslim-Hindu. It is an assault on the Constitution of India and every Indian's democratic right.
Ma'am, the MCD officials that we've been speaking to tell us that it was a routine anti-encroachment drive, and it's the politicians in the opposition specifically, which are trying to give a communal color to what was a routine affair for them.
Well, I wish I could believe that. I wish that were true. I wish the entire country could believe what is being said by what you call the other side. I would say there should only be really one side, and that side should be on the side of law, it should be on the side of the Supreme Court and what it said, and it should be on the side of just humanity. I ask you, if that is the case, why were the bulldozers only in one area of Jahangirpuri? Why? There's a widow there. What was she doing? She's just, look, they've just recovered and not even recovered from pandemic. There are no jobs available. This government is not giving people jobs. Factories around the area are closed down. How will a family live? So they were just running small shops. And it's all over Jahangirpuri. It's all over the entire area. I've got photographs I can show you. In all the other blocks. But why only in this area? And why, after an open statement by the BJP president?
Now, what happened in Delhi is quite disturbing. The kind of visuals that we are seeing from the national capital are very, very disturbing. Who is to be blamed here? Because we are seeing politics taking place, but somebody needs to take the responsibility as well. Who is to be blamed for what is happening 4 days after we saw riots in Delhi?
Well, what happened 4 days back? Let's talk about it. Because our team, our fact-finding team had been there. You know, we've been every day there in Jahangirpuri. I had written to the police commissioner also in Delhi. Now the police, after that letter or whatever, for their own reasons, came out with the truth that that procession did not have permission. It was illegal. It was an illegal procession which was being escorted by the police. And they allowed the processions to stop outside a mosque when the roza was being broken and the namaz was being read. When those believers were going there to the masjid to pray. And at that time, you allow an illegal procession armed with swords, with pistols, to stop outside a mosque and give the most provocative slogans. So that's what happened. And who are these people? They belong to an organization. They belong to the Bajrang Dal. They belong to an affiliate of the Sangh Parivar. It's not a secret. So we wrote to the police commissioner on the basis of facts. There are videos which show this. So we want punishment for those guilty. There's no doubt about it. But when things become one-sided, and then on top of it all, you destroy the livelihood of people just because they belong to one religious community, as though there's no Constitution of India, there's no law in India, and whatever you want goes. If the BJP president of Delhi says bulldozer will be there, the bulldozer is there. If the Supreme Court says maintain the status quo, for 1.5 hours they do not maintain it, they deliberately violate it, well, all I would say is, I don't think it's Hindu-Muslim here. I think it's every single Indian citizen against those who want to destroy our country and destroy harmony and peace and rights of individuals in our country. That's what's happening. And that's why that bulldozer had to be stopped. It was legal to stop the bulldozer. It was illegal after the Supreme Court order. And not only the Supreme Court order, it was illegal intrinsically, because you did not give anyone a chance. Anyone a chance. You didn't even give a notice. Just went and demolished everything. And that also in one particular area. It's shocking. It's really shocking.
All right, Ms. Brinda Karat, appreciate you joining us here on Urban Debate on Mirror Now this evening and sharing with us what you saw on the ground. All eyes, of course, are going to be on what the Supreme Court has to say tomorrow. So is instant justice the new norm? That's something that we'll debate over the next 30 minutes. Joining us on the broadcast this evening is Neeraj Kumar, former Police Commissioner of the National Capital. Yashovardhan Azad, former IPS officer, also joining us. Geeta Luthra, senior advocate, live with us. Desh Ratan Nigam, lawyer, also with us on the broadcast. Thank you very much, all of you, for joining us here on Urban Debate on Mirror Now this evening. Mr. Neeraj Kumar, I want to begin the discussion with you. There are communal clashes, then we see demolition drives taking place. Do you see some sort of a pattern here? It happened in Madhya Pradesh, it happened in Gujarat, now it's happening in the national capital too.
Well, I'm not familiar with the facts of the case, whether the demolitions took place of people who were accused of rioting. So I cannot give you a definite opinion. But the basic point is that before demolitions take place, due process must be followed. I do not know whether in the demolitions held today, due process was followed or not. So I cannot give you any definitive opinion on this subject.
But the way we saw all of this happening in the national capital, the role of Delhi police is also being questioned because it happened 4 days after we saw clashes in Jahangirpuri area of the national capital. What does it say about the law and order situation in the national capital, Mr. Neeraj Kumar? Because first an illegal procession was allowed, then we saw stone pelting, and then 4 days later, demolition drive.
Well, surely the illegal procession ought not to have been allowed. But, a police officer who is at the spot, he has to weigh the pros and cons of the situation on the ground. Many a time it so happens that even when processions do not have permissions, in the interest of maintaining the peace and instead of precipitating a situation by stopping the procession and trying to disperse the mob, processions are allowed in the hope that perhaps they will pass through the route that they wish to follow without any disturbances. Theoretically, yes, if a procession does not have permission, it ought not to be allowed. But sometimes we do take decisions to allow the processions to proceed because we do not wish to precipitate a situation in which there are clashes between the police and the processionists, and a riotous situation follows. Here, it is very clear that the gamble that was taken by the officers on the spot has gone totally awry, and it has led to this kind of a situation. So that is that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Yashovardhan Azad, demolition drive this morning began around 9:30. There was a Supreme Court order as well. Despite that, the demolition continued. What is your view of what unfolded today in Jahangirpuri area of the national capital? Is it just a coincidence that there is a statement that's made by BJP's president about what should be happening in this area, and 4 days after clashes exactly that happens, and then the people, the officials of North Delhi civic body say that it was a routine demolition drive? There's nothing to do with what happened 4 days ago in Jahangirpuri area.
Well, I was patiently waiting while you were having one-to-one interview for almost as long as 20 minutes with the CPM representative. And I could not get facts out of her because I think the voice was muffled and she was more giving opinions. But she was at the spot. Maybe she would know better. I wasn't. But, the first point I would like to make, and Mr. Deshratan Nigam, my friend and a very reputed lawyer, is also here. I mean, they said that they haven't got a copy of the order. So, I mean, technically, legally, they are right. As long as you don't have the order, even the court believes it, that till you don't get the copy of the order, you can't really implement the order. Now, as far as demolition drive is concerned, doing 4 days after the thing, against the rioters, I think, as Neeraj said, it's right, the due process of law should be. What happens is that NCD gives a notice to a lot of people. And then those notices keep lying. And whenever something like this happens, then they go bulldozing it. So, obviously the timing is a suspect. I appreciate that. It would have been excellent because, Delhi really suffers from encroachment. And I would be extremely happy if you use bulldozers or even missiles to clear the encroachments, because you can't, it's so difficult these days. But at this time, I think this is not right, because this is not the way to do it. You have to give them fresh notices. And in fact, if you're talking about the even Madhya Pradesh, where the bulldozers were used, they set up a tribunal. The tribunal people were supposed to appeal, okay, my house has been demolished and, this is the damage, which should be done by the claims tribunal. And after that, the money is claimed by the writers, twice the amount or whatever. So that is fine. But by demolishing straight away, I think this will be difficult to do with the law. As far as, if you're asking me also the third question about what happened 4 days back, I would certainly say, I differ a little from Neeraj, I would say that because the tension was very high, 2 processions had already passed by that area, 3rd procession had not been given the permission, it was bound to create some problem or the other. So attaching a posse of policemen was wrong, in fact. In fact, that is sort of letting air to fire because they would not be able to control if anything would happen. Therefore, number one, an armed contingent should have gone because you saw the reaction also which came from the other side was equally resolute and absolutely well prepared, and it was tough. It was really resolute, and policemen were attacked. And that's why it was important that to save this fracas, at the point of conflagration, the police contingent should have been well equipped to take a very, very stern action. And my last point is, you can't allow a procession with naked swords. I mean, first of all, it's illegal. And then you are carrying these swords. That's wrong. Therefore, the culpability is high on this side. Though, of course, there were criminals on both sides, there's no doubt. And the NSA also, which has been put on those people, are the right people. But then, also, it should be on the other side who were taking out an illegal procession and with naked swords. So, the issue should be slightly balanced. That is what my opinion is.
Two important points you've mentioned here, Mr. Azad. One, the officials on the ground probably did not receive the copy of the order. Timing is clearly a suspect here, because what happened today, what the MCD officials are calling a routine anti-encroachment drive, happened in the area that saw clashes just 4 days ago, and the situation still remains a bit tense in that particular area of the national capital. But if we look at what's happening in other parts of the country, do you also see a pattern in a way emerging? We see communal clashes followed by demolition drive. Is this instant justice, or rather bulldozer justice, becoming a new norm?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, well, this has been announced by the BJP leaders. In fact, the BJP Home Minister said, "हाँ bulldozer चलेगा, rioters को छोड़ा नहीं जाएगा, और जो rioting वगैरह ऐसी करेंगे, उनके इस पे bulldozer चलेगा." So that has been said. Now that is their instant policy. That is the way they think they'll deal with it. I think that this is slightly odd, innocuous, and unfair, because I think this should be done with due process of law. Everyone is afflicted by encroachment, but rioters cannot be treated by bulldozing their houses. There's a due process of law. They have to be booked. They should go into prison. They should get conviction. But homes being demolished without notice, I think that is a separate part. That is an MCD part. Police should not even be involved except for giving security and cover.
Okay. Geeta Luthra, for about 1.5 hours, demolition drive continued after the Supreme Court's order. Is there no fear among the officials, the municipal officials, of contempt of court's order?
See, I think that the moment that you get to know even orally of a Supreme Court order, there has to be verification, and you can't continue the demolition. It was not something that was being demolished that couldn't be demolished half an hour later. So the moment, and there are MCDs, standing councils, senior standing councils. So the first thing that happens if someone says, see, an order has to be communicated to a party. So MCD had to be communicated even verbally, because sometimes physical orders take time. The communication takes time. So even if a verbal communication is done that this is the order of the highest court of the land, then that should be respected, and there should be some waiting or some verification made at the highest level to see that if a representation is being made that there is a stay order, it can't be in the air. Now, having said all that, normally, even if you haven't got an order, you sometimes do is in urgency give an affidavit to the SHO or to the police station concerned or to the MCD, and that works till the order is communicated. But even an oral communication with a person of some responsibility has to be taken to be correct, unless it is rechecked that that's not correct. So, to my mind, the first problem that happened is when the council had got an interim order and the court had said status quo, and that had been communicated, albeit verbally, action should have stopped. Then, of course, the Supreme Court told the Supreme Court registry to communicate the order, and it stopped. But it does not appear that this is in the spirit of the law. It may be in the letter of the law, it's not in the spirit of the law. The spirit of the law, if you have got a communication which is saying that there is a status quo direction, then I think that had to be respected. And that I believe
why was it
that
not respected? Desh Ratan
has
Nigam
to be explained.
Let me,
Why was it not respected, Desh Ratan Nigam? Because 9:30 the demolition drive started. The order came around 10:50 or so, and by 11:15, it was there on TV channels, and the MCD officials did not know anything about the order. Is that the argument?
let me put things in perspective as a lawyer. When such things happen and an order is passed, I, as a lawyer, have tried to communicate by writing a letter on my letterhead and then sending it till somebody acquires the the true copy of the order and certified copy of the order. In this case, it appears to not have been done, because such fact has not come out that any lawyer has communicated through a letter or not, because formal orders take time to come out. And therefore, what happens if such orders are disobeyed? The court sees whether the order was actually communicated to them. And that has to be in writing, because courts will go by record, not by verbal things. And there was a willful disobedience or not. So on these two parameters, the arguments fail. Now, secondly, let me tell you, where people say that notices were not given. And let me talk of Khargaon. Khargaon, the due process of law has been done. There are Tehsildar's orders where they have already declared it illegal, notices were issued. Now let me come to Jahangirpuri. There has been 2 cases of the Supreme Court where this aspect was taken care of, to remove all the illegal encroachments and unauthorized constructions on the roads, pavements, and on public or government land. One was in April 24, 2018, and a special task force was made, and they said, clear it out. Everything. That's a permanent standing order. One. Secondly, there was another order in September 29, MC Mehta's case. This was regarding parking, where they gave time to the government to clear out within 15 days. So they gave 15 days notice at that point of time. That aspect has
Mr.
not been
Desh Ratan
taken into...
Nigam, going by what you're saying, is it just a coincidence that in Khargaon... Okay, quickly finish your point, sir.
So that order still holds. Clear instruction that clear the encroachment. Second, we have to make a distinction between permanent structures on a government land and the encroachments on the pavement and roads. Encroachments on pavements and roads are removed on a routine basis. You don't require to give notices out there. And secondly, the Supreme Court also said...
But we do not see bulldozers out on the streets of the national capital almost on a daily basis.
No, it's not that.
And is it just a coincidence, Mr. Desh Ratan Nigam? One second. Mr. Desh Ratan Nigam, is it then just a coincidence that in Madhya Pradesh also, the Home Minister of Madhya Pradesh makes a statement that rioters will be punished. Similar statement was made by the Chief Minister as well. And then we have this demolition drive at the spot where we saw rioting. In Delhi also, 4 days ago, clashes broke out, and then we had the demolition drive, and the MCD officials call it a routine anti-encroachment drive. Why don't we see then bulldozers moving almost on a daily basis? As Mr. Azad was mentioning earlier, that there is a problem of encroachment in Delhi. But why only in one area that is seeing tension?
Let me answer that. First, let me complete my previous point. There was an observation by the Supreme Court that if the encroachment has been removed and it is then the very same people re-encroach, they gave a direction to the government to frame rules so that the repeat encroachers, their civic facilities like water, electricity, sewage, etc. has to be disconnected. It has not to be provided to them. Whether such rules have been made or not, the Supreme Court has been very, very clear on that. Now, coming to your point, which you said, somebody else's wrong cannot make other person's wrong right. Please remember that. If you go to the court, like if I have an unauthorized construction and somebody is taking down my construction, I say in 3-4 blocks down the road, there is another construction which they are not doing. They are not removing. But that does not give a protection that your structure will not be demolished. Please remember, these are legal maxims. And therefore, you must also
but
at the same
Mr. Azad,
time...
the point still remains the same. Like you mentioned earlier, encroachment is definitely a big cause of concern in the national capital and in other parts of the country too. But why? Only in Jahangirpuri area where we have seen tension because of what happened 4 days back. Is it just coincidence?
No, as I told you earlier, 2 points. First is about this. As I told you earlier, this has been made a policy. I mean, at least they're honest about it. I mean, I've heard BJP leaders, even in, I think they said something like Mama ka bulldozer chalega or something like that. So they've made it an open policy. In UP also it's an open policy. I was trying to understand what Mr. Nigam is saying. Obviously, we have two, great lawyers here, so I can't say much. I would only say that as far as what I know about it is that, these notices about illegal encroachments are thrown by the NCD at various places to sort of show that, yes, we have done the job, but they are never done. So at this opportune time to strike, it looks a little, directed at this particular point of time, I would say. And the other point I would just like to refer to Geeta ji is, if she can recall, you remember, I thank you very much because you rightly said that it's the spirit of law, and the actual formal order can come later. If you recall, even in Bombay, the High Court had given bail, and yet the court, I think it was the NCB case or something, yet because the bail order had not reached, the lower court did not give bail, and finally it went over to the next day, and then it did not reach the prison. So it went on for 3 days. So I think this should be clarified. Today, in the age of technology and digital, a WhatsApp should suffice to the officer concerned, because today is the day of digital signature, and I think we need to fast track this. That way, it would have been much better in today's the 2 hours of demolition which carried on after the Supreme Court order could have been avoided.
Ms. Geeta Luthra, since many orders in the past as well have not been followed, is that the reason why the officials here also felt, let's do what we are supposed to do? We'll see what will happen tomorrow. We can file a review petition. We can also, fight this case later. Let's finish the task that we have been given to do. Do you think that's the mindset probably?
I cannot actually understand the mindset. I do understand one legal proposition where I was slightly differing with Ms. Karat, saying that if it is an encroachment on public land or government land, then a notice is not required. So there is some distinction there. But the fact is, one is the timing, which seems to be suspect. The other is the aspect that there are persons who are crying out that this was not really public land, or this was in fact part and parcel of their property. Also, you give a person an opportunity to remove their belongings. These are poor people. We cannot be blind to the fact that even if it is public land, the poor man may have some little clothes, some belongings, some items. Those items he should have an opportunity to remove. If it is private land, notice is mandatory. If it is public land, and if it's been a long-standing encroachment, then there has to be some warning, even though, strictly speaking, maybe no notice is required. But if it's something which is long-standing, people have been living there, you've allowed these encroachments to happen, and you've allowed this to subsist, then you can't come one fine day and bulldoze even their private belongings. You have to give some opportunity. Dehorse the fact of communication, which even if we look at the spirit said it's been communicated. Why do people do this? Why did MCD do this? I cannot understand. I believe it may be a case of being overzealous, and they do know that stays do come if they don't do demolitions immediately. So sometimes it's a case of overdrive. But in this case, this overdrive didn't seem to be warranted.
And let's not forget, last night only Delhi BJP chief had written to MCD Mayor, Dangaiyon par bulldozer chalana chahiye. And that is the reason why timing today is being questioned. I want to give the last word to Mr. Neeraj Kumar, former Police Commissioner, National Capital. You've understood the city very well when you were the Police Commissioner of the National Capital. You know the city very well. As somebody who has been the police commissioner, do the developments concern you as a citizen of this country, as somebody who has been the police commissioner of Delhi, looking at what is happening today in the national capital?
Most certainly, yes. The developments, particularly the riots in Northeast Delhi, followed by these riots, these are not happy developments. They need to be looked into. If there are intelligence failures, we must plug those loopholes. People must be taken to task. Did the local police have prior intelligence about the procession that would turn riotous or violent? If it did have the intelligence, why was the intelligence not acted upon? If there was no intelligence, the people who are tasked with this job, they should be taken to task, and so on and so forth. So these developments are worrisome. And also, do not forget that investigations into both the Jahangirpuri riots as well as the Northeast riots have shown that there is an underlying conspiracy that is behind these unfortunate incidents. And that is what worries me the most, because there are forces which are unseen, which are behind the curtains, who are operating through ground level henchmen. And this is what is going to trouble the city for a long, long time to come.
All right. We leave it there and we'll see what happens in the Supreme Court tomorrow, because what happened in the national capital today was extremely disturbing. I'd like to thank each one of you. Thank you very much for joining us here on Urban Debate on Mirror Now.